Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Quinton here, and this is tutorial number 32. And in this tutorial we are still talking about float and clear, so this is indeed the second part to the tutorial. And in this video, as promised, I'm going to show you guys how to float a whole bunch of divs next to each other so that we can create like a 3-column layout for our website. Okay, and we are going to use this in future when I do create like a website template or something. But for now, we're just actually going to create the 3 different columns. So to do that, let's start off by creating a div. And I'm going to end that div off. And I actually want to give this class, or this div, a class. And the class can be left underscore column because this div is going to be on the left. Okay, then I'm going to just put some text in here. So let's give this some text of div 1. Okay, and just, to be lazy, let's copy that and paste that here and there so that we have 3 different divs. But let's change this. So this is going to be div 2 and the next one can be div 3. Okay, and classes obviously need to change as well. So our first div is going to be on the left, so that's going to be left column. Our second div is going to be in the middle, so we're going to call that the middle column. And our last div is going to be on the right, so we're going to call that the right column. Okay, so if we save this now and go over to Firefox and run this in Firefox, you can see we have div 1, div 1, div 2, and div 3. So they're not exactly in columns just yet. They're still appearing beneath each other. So we need to get them to appear next to each other. But before we do that, I actually just want to make them look a little bit more like some blocks or some actual squares or something. So let's go over to CSS and actually style these classes. So I'm going to grab my left column, go over to CSS over here and select my left column. And before I style this, let's just set everything up. So we've got middle column, grab that, paste that in here, and we'll also do the right column. So let's go ahead and grab the column from the right and put that in there as well. Okay, and right now we haven't changed anything, so let's actually give our div a background color so that we'll be able to see it a lot more clearly. So I'm going to give that a background color of blue, and then I'm going to give it a height of 200 pixels, and we can give it a width of 200 pixels. And then I think we can also just change the color of the text to white because this blue is actually going to be very dark, so we might not be able to see our word or our words div 1 on a blue background. So we'll change the color to white, and that way we'll be able to see them. Okay, and I'm wondering now if I should put a margin in or not, but I think let's just give that a skip. So I'm going to save this now. Let's go over to Firefox over here and click refresh. And hey presto, we have one big block over here that's for our first div. Okay, and I'm going to just text align that to center, just so that the text actually appears more or less in the center. Okay, and what I'm going to do is copy that and paste that in here and in here, but we're going to change the background color to red for the middle one and green for the right column. So save this now, and when we go back to Firefox, we should have 3 cool colored blocks. So a blue one, a red one, and a green one. How cool is that? But again, they're still not exactly columns just yet because they're all appearing beneath each other, so there's actually one column and not three separate columns. So let's go ahead and learn how to get them next to each other, and that was where float and clear comes into play. So for our first column, which is the left column, we know we want that to be on the left, so I'm going to go ahead and float that left. And let's save this and actually go back to Firefox and see what happens. Click refresh. Well, oh dear, what's gone on here? We've got our blue div, and then our red div seems to have disappeared, but it actually is appearing, it's just behind our blue div. So let's go back here, and for our middle column, what I want to do is float that right next to our left column so that it'll be in the middle. And I guess I confuse you guys by saying I want to float it right next to, but I actually want to float it next to this div. So I want to float it next to the left column, and to do that I'm just going to go ahead and say float left again, and whenever you do that we land up floating this column, our left column, left, then our middle column floats left next to the left column and appears in the middle. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for the right column. So you might think, well, hey, oops, not float, float left. Okay, you might be thinking, well, hey, this is the right column, why don't we float it right? And I will show you guys why we're doing this in just a second, but let's just float them all left and click refresh, and as you can see we've got div 1 and then div 2 floated next to our first div, and then div 3 floated next to our second div or our middle div. So they're all appearing right next to each other, and that's pretty cool. But let's see what happens if I change this right div to float right. So go back here and change that to float right. Then you'll notice that we land up having it float to the right, and it leaves a whole bunch of space in the middle. Okay, so whenever I want to create three different columns, I want them to be right next to each other, unless, you know, if I put a margin in just to give a little bit of space, I still want those two margins of the divs to be touching, in other words. So I'll just float them all left, one after the other, and they all appear next to each other, which is very cool. That's just the way I like it, so you don't have any like wasted space like you would over here. So let's go back, and I'm going to give this a float left again, and we'll give this these things all a margin of 10 pixels, and you'll see they won't be touching each other anymore, but there still won't be any wasted space other than the margin which we put there for spacing purposes. So now we've got our margin over here, but there's no like really huge amount of wasted space as there would be if I took this div 3 or our right column and floated it right. And that's all for this tutorial, guys. So I hope I hope this helped. But in the next video we're actually going to start taking a look at how to create a website template. So we're going to place the header at the top of the page, and then we're going to have our columns and our footer at the bottom, clearing everything. And we're going to make our website appear in the center of the browser and all that cool stuff. So I'm going to show you guys a whole bunch of cool tips and a whole bunch of tricks just to get your website layout started. And we're also going to learn about some new tags which I've kept right until this last moment. So hopefully I will see you guys in the next tutorial, and until then, don't forget to subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment, like, or share this video. It's really going to help my channel grow, and I will see you guys next time.